Hi everybody, it's Chris here from the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. Just to let you know, as always, this podcast is now part of the 90-Minute Football Network and proudly sponsored by www.pt-4-u.co.uk. Enjoy the episode.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages. We are back. Finally, not pointing any fingers at all at anyone, but somebody was having technical issues. But we'll skirt over that. Tonight, I'm going to be your host this evening. It's me, Mark, and I am joined by Tucker. Evening, Tucker.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Daryl, with the technical problems. Yeah, we got there in the
Drop
end.
him straight in there, don't you? Yeah.
Right.
We are joined with somebody that you will be familiar with from every stream. You normally see him in the comments, and Daryl's with us tonight. Good evening, Daryl.
Evening, Mark. Evening, Digger. Evening, everybody. Yes, I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. This is what happens when you don't turn your laptop on for about 6 or 8 weeks.
It's he's using one of those newfangled steam-powered laptops.
Aye, definitely.
I didn't think we were going to get on. I didn't think we were going to get on at first, or we'll have to just kick him off, I think. Then again, it might happen, to be fair, mate.
That's it. We'll have to see what his quality is like tonight. But thank you for everybody for waiting for us to join. We are live now, finally. And we're here to have a little bit of chat around today's press conference where we saw Amanda Staveley speaking to the club on social media, on YouTube. So we thought we'd just have a little bit of chat around that and see how things go. So Daryl, you had the joyous occasion of actually meeting Amanda earlier this week and her lovely husband, Mairdad.
Aye, I did. Very fortunately at work, they were travelling up from London King's Cross on Tuesday morning, and I was very privileged that they gave us 10 minutes of their time just for a quick hello and a quick chat. And also got hold of a picture, which you can see on the Gallowgateshots Twitter handle as well. They retweeted me tweet from Tuesday morning. As I said on yesterday's phone-in, if you want to watch that back, they're genuinely lovely people. Everything you'll have seen Amanda speak about in the interview today and how she comes across in the interview is generally how they are in the flesh as well. I cannot speak highly enough of just how lovely and genuine they are.
So you had no technical problems on the train for them or anything like that, Daryl? No, everything was okay.
No, everything was fine.
Good.
Absolutely
That's
fine.
Good. Sorry, I'm just being a dick. I apologise. So did you ask them anything at all? I appreciate, obviously, you're not really going to because you're just doing your job. But first of all, it is nice to hear that they were approachable, obviously, and they were happy to kind of get a photo and stuff like that. But were you nervous speaking to them or anything like that? I'd imagine you were.
I was actually, and it's not very often you get starstruck by anybody, but it was just because the overwhelming feelings of joy and elation that you get from actually meeting the people who are effectively saving the club to a degree. And I had briefly met my dad at the Chelsea game a couple of weeks ago. And as soon as I started speaking to them, he sort of recognised that it was me again. But I sort of just said, thank them for doing everything they've done so far and in buying the club. Just said congratulations on being able to appoint Eddie as manager as well. And mentioning that it was nice to see him pop into work at 10 to 7 on that morning at the training ground to start the job. It's
fucking hell,
they were like I say, they were just really nice to talk to, and I didn't want to pry them for too much information. And just saying, they were quite happy to tell us exactly what they've said today in terms of how big of a job it is and all the work they've got to do and what they have been doing in the last 5 weeks. So I think from what I would definitely take from the conversation that I had with them would be going forward that, they definitely have our interests at heart, and I have faith in them to deliver their promises.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that Amanda talked around in her interview was how really welcomed she'd felt by the fans, not only her but obviously her husband and the Rubens that she'd spoken to, and she felt that she'd really been welcomed to the club. Everybody was really nice and genuine, and when they were speaking to her, she did say that it had been an exhausting 5 weeks, and that it had been a lot of long hours trying to kind of get it all sorted. But you can quite imagine there's been a fair bit of work to do during the last 5 weeks, Decker.
Well, yeah, I think it's, incredibly difficult for them in one sense. I can also hear an echo, which isn't helping. But yeah, they've come in, obviously, they obviously want to do the best they possibly can. But I think what she also said early on in that interview was having to act quick and learning things on the job. Do you know what I mean? You haven't even got like a summer off, have you, to try and sort of, understand things and talk to people. You're literally on the job day one, having to do things. She's on the train more times than Daryl recently, from what I've seen as well. She's she's up and down, but obviously going back to London or whatever, and then coming back to Newcastle. It must be exhausting. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, there's a sense of pressure there as well, because she wants to do well and be seen to be doing the right things. And it must be very difficult. It must be very difficult. But we'll love her, of course.
It's a hell of a commute. Like, I must give her that. Like, it's to do that, even if it's more than up to 3 or 4 times a week, just buzzing back and forth. It's a hell of a job, and they were definitely very busy for most of the trip as well. Noticing when I was like passing by that, they were either buried in the laptop or taking phone calls. So they've definitely got that work cut out for them, but they're doing a grand job so far.
Was it just the two of them that were there, Daryl, or was there anybody else from the club with them?
There was 2 of them, and there was a couple of that bodies as well from that team. I wasn't quite able to make out exactly who they were, but before we parted ways, they pretty much said, we're here with the rest of our team. And whether or not that's a team that's working for the club or if it's from PCP itself, I don't know. But I think you would probably think they were pulling their resources from PCP to work alongside them with the club at the same time.
You did really well, like, for just doing your job there, Darryl. You seem to be asking loads of questions, introducing you to the team and stuff like that. So you've done very well there.
Like I said, that was as we were getting off, and I was just chatting to them before we got off the train, and like I say, she was like, here we are, and this is some of the team that we're brought up with. So it's nice to see them crossing over from all angles of their expertise and their business to bring it into the club, because as we've found out today, and as I'm sure Mark will mention, that they've talked about the levels of investment that are going to be needed going forward.
Yeah, I think what you've said there about them being approachable is unbelievable, isn't it? And you think
it's such a shock to the system. You just don't expect it to be like that, but like they were happy to talk and happy to listen as well, to be honest. And it was just really refreshing, and like still can't quite believe it now.
Because when you see them like on the TV and stuff like that, of course they're at the best, right? As you would be. You're going to be presenting yourself in such a way that you're approachable, you're a lovely person. But sometimes with people that are that rich or that, you could say, powerful in a sense, they could also be very arsey in that situation, you may expect. Because at the end of the day, they're on a train, they want to be on the phone, they want to be on the laptop, they want to be working or whatever. And then there's people coming over like yourself, no offense, Daryl, but are bothering them, obviously, right? So it's really nice that they are like that, which is really great. It's really, really good.
It really is.
So one of the things that you just mentioned there, Daryl, was the fact that they happen to do a commute a couple of times a week. Somebody that we know moving forward won't have to be doing that commute is Eddie Howe. So he brought the news in his interview that he'd be moving up with his whole family and everything like that. So speaking of Eddie Howe, Amanda spoke at length in that interview about Eddie and the whole recruitment process, of how they kind of brought him on board and looked to get him in. Described him as the perfect fit. Said that he was a dynamic coach, and that they'd done a lot of research on him. And the surprising thing for me, Decker, was that they talked about that they'd actually had conversations with Eddie Howe when Mike Ashley still owned the club.
Yeah, that did take me a bit of a surprise, if I'm honest. I also, when she was talking about she used analytics and data, she kept saying as well, that obviously that they've used, and he scored top points. It was really interesting that, though, when she said they've interviewed him with the Mike Ashley situation. But the good thing is, he's been on that list for a long time, and they obviously clearly believe in him. And I think the one thing that you need with an appointment like that is belief from the owners. I think with the Bruce appointment, a lot of people think he was 7, 8, 9 on the list. Whereas I certainly get the feeling from Amanda that this has been talked about for a long time, and he's definitely been within that top 2. So that gives you a lot of faith moving forward, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's evident that in the details that they shared that they thought very highly of him. The fact that he was, on that list. I think she kind of admitted that they'd maybe made a bit of a judgment call with diving into the Emery one. They talked about kind of processes and that that they're having to adapt to football changing very, very quickly. And I think obviously the fact that Emery decided to turn them down kind of caught them on the hop. But even so, they did react quite quickly to that, and within a matter of days, Daryl, we did change our attentions to Howe and get him in pretty quickly from that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's important that that I mentioned there that and that you mentioned that we had been talking to Eddie previously when Mike Ashley's still in the club, and that was they were probably limited to what they were limited to what they could do then, because while they didn't own the club, they couldn't speak to anybody in the club staff-wise, and they couldn't make any plans until they actually had the keys to the door, except in the evidence of Eddie Howe, because he wasn't employed by the club. So they could make these sorts of decisions and have these conversations before owning the club. So it's very encouraging to see that they've been speaking to him so far in advance. And just going back to that point there, I've lost what I was going to say. Never mind. It's this beer. It's a bit strong.
What is it like? What is it? Is it Boddington, is that?
No, it's a Northumberland lager.
Oh, okay.
It's a 4.8.
All right.
A little bit stronger than normal.
Bit strong for you. Be on your back by the end of this, Darryl.
So Neil JR there, he's just came up with one of the great points that I liked in the interview, was the fact that she talked about if mistakes are made or when they make mistakes, that they'll straight away they'll hold their hands up to them and then they'll look to put them right. So that's really refreshing to hear, Decker, after what we've put up with for the last 14 years of decisions being made right or wrong, and then just being stuck with it.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, it takes a lot to do that, because sometimes it looks as a sign of weakness, of obviously saying that you have done something wrong. And what I would say with Ashley, he did that many mistakes. Even if he did come out eventually and apologise, it didn't matter. You've made too many mistakes. However, I think with these being new to football, and it's kind of like it is new for them, I think us as fans understand that as well, and we are willing to accept that there may be mistakes down the line. But it was fantastic that she said that if we do get something wrong, we will come out, we will be honest, and in fairness, I mean, that video she did today, that interview, there was no real reason to do that. She didn't have to do that. Like, other than Eddie Howe being appointed, there wasn't really anything else to comment. Really, all she had to do was release that statement on the website saying, we really think he's going to be great for the job, he's a perfect fit for the club, etc., etc. But for her to go again out of her way and think, actually, I'm going to do another video to the fans to explain other things, it was just so refreshing. Like, just I almost pinched myself a little bit, thinking I certainly don't expect it still. I don't expect it, because we've had so much dross over the last 14 years. When they do come out and do a 7-10 minute video saying what the plans are and what the visions are, it just shocks us. And you do get a sense as well, though, don't you, that you actually believe what she's saying. Like, it doesn't just seem like PR either. I genuinely believe what she's saying, and she means every word, which is just absolutely brilliant. Like,
absolutely,
yeah, she does come over as very, very honest and genuine in what she's saying, Daryl.
Absolutely, she's got no ulterior motive to try and bury anything under the sand. And it's important when we talk about, she's said that when they'll make mistakes, I think it's important that we have to accept that they probably are going to make mistakes, and there will be little bits and bobs here and there, because they're novices to the football world to a degree. And until more of the structure is going to be in place in the coming weeks and months, then the decisions are going to be left to them, and there probably is going to be another couple of hurdles before we get that structure in place going forward.
There was a comment there I just seen at the bottom there. You've just took it off. I think it says his PR guru. Someone said about Amanda. This one from Scott, yeah, and it's a really good point that if you imagine Amanda, let's just say, wasn't part of it, we really wouldn't have a spokesman. Does that make sense? Like Piff, I'm going to be in front of a camera every 5 minutes. So Amanda is such a huge part of what it is in terms of representing the ownership. And she definitely is a PR guru, as you're saying there.
Yeah, but I think it's so nice to hear, isn't it? After having years of deafening silence, to have this new connection with the owners, being able to feel that you actually really are part of this takeover with them, being so involved. Seen loads of comments in the last few days around the difference in the club's social media accounts. There's lots of comments about that tonight in the chat as well. That everybody's really getting on, and it's almost as if the shackles have been removed, and it's just that there is this new era of everything being much more transparent, to steal a popular word that we've had over the last months and years during this whole process.
It's mad, isn't it? Though you think, like, did you just say the social media account there? Is that what you said there? Sorry, like how is Mike actually being there, making some guy not tweet funny things or like just nice things? And since he's gone, even as you say, the social media game's improved loads, and they're posting great things about some of our ex-professionals, which I will understand that. I will give that one. Some of our ex-pros obviously didn't get on Marshy and things like that, but it is mental to lose one man and the whole club, everything from a fucking tweet from an account has changed. Is quite insane. Like, it really is.
Yeah, it's really, really refreshing, but we can't escape from the reality of the fact that we are still in a little bit of dicey problems down at the bottom of the league, and it wasn't something that she avoided during the question, and she did talk about relegation, and again it was interesting to hear that her and Eddie had been having the conversation around relegation, and she came out with the line that it was important that we brought in somebody that wasn't frightened of relegation. So I don't know whether you thought that was maybe a little bit of dig at some other the managers that would be linked with, maybe, Daryl?
Quite possibly. We had links to Emery and Fonseca and others, and I suppose you probably would have to say that those names wouldn't want to be associated with a relegation. And you've got Eddie Howe there, who's been in relegation battles before, knows how to deal with them, knows how to survive them, and somebody who would be prepared to stick in and see through a following season if the worst thing did happen. But he's been talked about so well by Amanda, and I was also pleased to hear them already talking about January as well. And I think if we can get the next major appointment being a sporting director, a director of football, if that appointment can be made soon, then I think we'll be cooking on gas come January.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things, and it is the fact that we do have that almost little bit of a safety blanket of the January transfer window. There's obviously been a lot of talk in the last few hours around the fact that the clubs have made almost a bit of a pact to deal with anybody but Newcastle, which I did find quite amusing. It's quite ironic just how much hate this little club in the northeast is getting lately, isn't it, from the other clubs? But
everybody's got a price.
Well, that's it, and we don't just have to shop within England. That's the other thing. I mean, as important as Premier League experience is we're not confined just to these shores to be making purchases. So I did find it quite funny. But when she was talking about the whole relegation piece, Decca, she came over very, very positive during it. She was like, talking about that she thought Eddie would do a great job and with the first team, and she almost had to stop herself from saying that she really believes he'll get us out of the position that we're in. I think that she was kind of going there with it and then caught herself, because obviously she didn't want to put that out there on live to say that we will definitely stay up. So it's just a little bit reserved, but it was nice to hear and see that confidence from her.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. I mean, obviously they've chose him in. We were 20th in the league at one stage. Them obviously believe he's the right guy, you know what I mean, and they wouldn't have got him in otherwise. And of course, they've got belief in him. But personally, I was more impressed with the way she said about him not being afraid if we get relegated. That tells me that they're not afraid either. Like as a group, they fully understand when they've bought there is a serious chance we could be relegated. But there's a sense of we'll do everything we can to stop that from happening. But if it does, it's okay. Like it's not okay, but like we are still here. The plan won't change. You've got a good possibility here. Eddie Howe would stay with her if we went down. Whereas I feel as if we got Emery or we got a bigger manager in. I hate to say that because that's a bit, what's the word? It's a bit harsh on Howe. But if we got maybe a bigger name, that person would just leave when we got relegated. And then you're starting all over again. Back to the drawing board. Who's going to come in? I do feel that if we do go down, okay, right, it's shit. Fans would be disappointed. But on the flip side, there'd still be an air of positivity. Because we've got a new manager, Howe's still there. We're still going to spend if we're down or not. And I just feel it was a good little message that from her, actually. And I do agree with what you're saying. There's still a huge amount of confidence there. You could see it in her and in Eddie's press conference as well, may I add, in regards to he believes he can get out of it. He believes the group of players we've currently got are better than what they're shown. I will actually say very quickly, Amanda and Eddie, both of them have come across unbelievably well in the media the last few days. All the work Eddie Howe's been doing, whether it be on NUFC TV, if you like, on the website, in front of Sky, he's just handled himself incredibly well. So I could honestly smiling when I see him talk, because I don't know if it's because I've seen Bruce for so long, just being so shit, you know what I mean? Like in terms of how he carries himself, Eddie Howe is just, he's just a man, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's just unreal. Yeah. And then you've got Amanda on top of that. It's a real lovely, great chemistry there, isn't it, of what we're seeing? So it's really exciting, really exciting.
It's interesting you talk about that, because it's Eddie's choice of language is something I've been crying out for months and months and months for Bruce to have done before he left. Is instead of all this downplaying and negativity and negative style words and language, Eddie comes in and it's like his expectation, what he expects from the team. And I don't even think he's said the word hope yet, has he?
I don't think
not in that context, Hope, so it'll be interesting to see. Interesting to see what he says in his first proper pre-match presser next Friday.
Yeah, I listen. Let's be fair here. I mean, it's all well and good him saying all these great things, and I think I said it on Twitter I love what he's saying in terms of his identity is the way he wants. I'm sorry, I know this might be Amanda, but I have to talk about Eddie for a little bit. He wants to have this identity of playing be on the front foot, be attacking. Don't just sit there and wait to get beat, and let the opposition and sort of immerse himself on us. It's great that. It's exactly what we all want to hear. But we also have to be realistic, and I don't believe 2 weeks can change that. I mean, it might against Brentford at home, but let's be fair here. It's going to take time. You can't just click your fingers and go, great, we're going to be attacking now. Let's play forward at the back and everything's fine. Like it will be difficult. But the reason why I'm so happy is the DNA of the leader, the DNA of our head coach is to play that way. And that's where, all right, it might not be the next game. It might not be the game after that. But eventually that is going to be the style he's going for. Whereas under Steve Bruce, you knew what the style was. It was just, let's sit back and wait and hope we can get a goal. And that's why I'm so positive about Eddie Howe. I really am. And when you look at the training footage, I haven't had a chance to speak about that. The training footage that the club leaked on Twitter, people were going absolutely insane about him shouting for a ball and running, because we've never seen that from a coach. We've never seen it since Kevin Keegan. Like, honestly, I haven't seen a coach do. I mean, Rafa was always out there with his shorts on, no matter what. But it's really nice, isn't it, though, to see our head coach be on there and almost doing as much as a player's doing. I mean, it's so refreshing. Honestly, I just over the moon, like honestly over the moon.
You can see why you won Amanda over when he's obviously presented himself like that in an interview, and it's just been a case of, well, you're hired basically. It's an easy decision.
I mean, the Telegraph said, I think it was them that got some sort of inside information saying that his interview was the best by far. And I understand why it was a split decision or whatever, because other people might have been looking at the experience of other managers. How can you turn down a manager who has won the Europa League or been in the Champions League? And I do get that. Of course I do. But it can imagine his interview being, I wish I would have watched it. I bet it was unreal how good it would have been, and the detail he would have went into, the ideas he had. The guy's a class act so far, and I really, really hope it works. I honestly do. I really do. Because I would hate for us to be sitting like this a year later going, well, he started really well, but he hasn't got a clue, has he? That would be shit. I would really, really hate. Honestly, and I do mean that. I do. I would hate for us to be in a position where that happened. I really hope that it works. I really hope it works out for him. I really do.
It would be a heartbreaker, that, wouldn't it? It would definitely be a heartbreaker. But
really would.
no, I mean, you mentioned that it's going to take time, and she definitely, you know, acknowledged that. That you know, they can't make things happen overnight. But they did talk a lot about the future, and what she wanted to do with the club and move it forward. She talked about the fact that she'd analysed all areas of the business. She recognised the fact that there was investment needed within the club, and that was at all levels. She'd already, as we know, put in, I think, around about £38 million into the club to kind of try and, you know, just get it moving forward a little bit. Again, we've seen today evidence of cleanups and maintenance work going on at the stadium as well. So, but one important thing that she did talk around was that she'd spent a lot of time at the academy, at the foundation, at the training ground, and all of that kind of thing, and said that there would lots of investment would be needed to happen there. And she actually did say that they would be building a new academy. So that's going to be exciting, Daryl.
It is. You know, these facilities that we're going with now, and that's not just at the academy, but it's at the first team training ground as well. You know, they're what, 20 years old, 21 years old now, and they've barely changed. You know, listening to Alan Shearer on the overlap there this afternoon, you know, there definitely hasn't been any change in the facility since he left in 2006, and that tells you everything you need to know. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with, because you've seen through PIF or PIF some of the other things that they've been involved with in terms of setting up sporting academies elsewhere, and that gives you the hope to think that we might be able to emulate something like that, and it's going to be a state-of-the-art facility that we could end up with here, and it's certainly going to, not only is it going to attract players to the club, it's also going to make sure that kept at peak performance levels as well. They're going to be well looked after. It's going to be filled with, you know, all your top equipment that you're going to need to run a football club. And it's encouraging to hear what she says about the academy, because it's about time we started producing our own talent in this region. It's a hotbed of football. There's plenty of talent here that we could garnish and farm and grow to be pushing through the whole system and into the first team in the future.
Yeah, and that's something that we've missed out on over the last, God, as long as I can remember. When you look, you're probably looking before the Longstaffs. You're probably looking at Andy Carroll as the last player that we actually kind of brought through successfully through the academy and stuff like that. And then before that, you've got to go back even longer. So we've definitely been left behind in the times with the young talent that's in the area. So, you know, making those steps to invest in the academy and look at bringing the best of the local area and outside of that, we know we've had a bit of a history of looking at talent in different countries and stuff like that and bringing young players over. So that can only, you know, be even better for the future, Decker.
I think that the point you said there is absolutely spot on. We've agreed, Mark. Really hell. The latter you've said there about everyone thinks of academy things. Oh, great, we'll get a little kid from Wallsend, and he'll all of a sudden be the number 9 and score all the goals, and it's history repeating itself. I actually look at it the way you're saying, is that why don't we go and pinch someone from Arsenal's? I don't know, you know what I mean? Like from around Liverpool or from London
Dummett
or something.
I've got to stop and apologise to Paul Dummett. Sorry, Decker.
No, that's all right.
How could I forget Paul Dummett?
Is go and get someone from there, and bring them to our academy, and then we grow them from there, or even players from abroad, as Mark said, and I did think it was interesting that the way she worded it. I know she says all all areas of the club need investment. The way she said it to me was like, Christ, we were even shocked when we seen how bad it was. Like,
Yeah.
I think she knew that the training ground needed it. She probably knew the academy needed it, but it was the way she says we've went through each area and all of it needs sorted, which I think was a bit of a shock, maybe, you know what I mean, to a degree. And listen, Rome wasn't built in a day, like, and it is going to be, you know, one step at a time. But the thing that's good for us is that we know that them steps are there. We know that the plan is there, and them want to do it. Whereas before we had an owner who didn't even want to look at the steps. He didn't care. Do you know what I mean? Whereas at least we know with Amanda and all the rest of them, that they really want to do it. And I think that's what's so exciting about it all. And it might take years, but I'm quite happy to be on that journey, like for however long it takes. And I just want to comment on what Darryl said about the overlap. That was interesting when Shiva said that about, listen, he said to Gary, it hasn't changed since 2006 when I was here. And I mean, you're like, when you think of that, that's absolutely just graceful when you think of it. Like it's awful.
It is.
Yeah, I think us as fans, we realised how bad the training facilities were. We've seen the pictures, we've seen it, as somebody's put in the comments there, the wheelie bins, the ice baths and stuff like that. The nice thing that again, jumping just to Eddie's interview, he talked about the fact that there has been a bit of a spruce up around the stadium. So he talked about walking, you know, down the tunnel and seeing all of the pictures in there, the changing room and stuff like that. So there's you know, those areas are certainly looking better. But I think it's a long overdue time for something to happen at the training ground. Do you see them building a new one, Decker, or looking to kind of, you know, spend and invest money in what's already there?
I think maybe more so immediately is to just invest with what's there and maybe upgrade what is there. And then if you then become, you know, I'm not saying successful. Successful is the wrong word, because when I say successful, that is like, oh, you're going to be in Europe, or you're going to win a cup. What I mean is like being, you know, mid-table, comfortable, you know, a decent team. That's a solid team. That's when maybe the next progression would be, right, okay, we might flatten all of this and start again completely, or we'll build somewhere else. I do feel that they're just going to upgrade the areas that are already there, which is fine, right? I mean, that's absolutely fine.
I totally agree with Decker there. It's going to be short-term and long-term, isn't it? That's how it's going to have to be planned out. And your short-term one will be to upgrade what we've got in place at the minute. And then long-term, you then start to look at, you know, I think if they go ahead and with what they're saying about building the new academy, if that isn't on the same site as it is now, that'll give you an indication of what's going to happen in the long term. And it'll be a case of it'll have your academy and your training ground for the first team. It'll be on its own site somewhere else. I can't see them staying and developing the whole site for the future in where it is at the minute because of the restrictions around that plot of land. It's very restrictive. They've sell off land that they could have used to develop the training ground on the other side at the top end next to the main road and put houses there. And there's more houses around between. I mean, there's a public bridleway between the academy and the first team training centre. So, you know, that's going to give you restrictions there. So I think in the future, it'll be something in the grander scale will be on a separate site away from where it is now.
Yeah, it will be. It will be, yeah.
They did talk about having a robust business plan, so you would imagine that these are the kind of things that they'll be looking at the opportunities to, and it'll be a balancing act, won't it, on what will it cost to build a new facility, what will it cost to upgrade what we've already got, and then look at, you know, what is going to be the best way to go with it. But as you say, Darryl, you know, the training ground at the minute is pretty much surrounded by housing and then the train lines running down the side. So it can't grow that much. So I just wonder whether or not they might potentially keep that for like the under 23s, the academies, maybe even the ladies team in the long term, and then look to have something, you know, built new to house the first team, and then eventually, depending on the area where it is and the size and stuff like that, look to have everything located there. So, but the fact that you talked about having the business plan, they knew what needed to be done. I think there probably was a few surprises in there, as we say, probably not knowing how bad the facilities were at the training ground. But she was just really, really keen to stress how when she'd been talking to everybody, kind of all of the staff, that there was a real good family feel around the club. With all of the staff, everybody was just so really enjoyed the job, really wanted to be there. And I get, I know a couple of people that work at the club, and they've been really lifted by the fact that the new owners have came in. And she talked about the fact that when she's talking to the people that work at the club, that they've got loads of ideas on how they want to improve things, how things can be better, and suggesting kind of alternative and more efficient ways of working, Daryl. I mean, who more than the people that work within that business knows the business better than the people that are, at the coalface kind of thing, living it day in and day out?
Absolutely. These are the guys that have worked at the club for, however many years, and there's no better expertise than what's already in the club itself. And I'm sure that they'll have looked at other clubs and thought, well, we could do that, but we've just never had the investment or the money to be able to do it. And then they'll be having the ideas of how they can do it even better again. And it's all linked into the competition between clubs at every level. So our social media team will want to poach the best ideas, the best practices from other teams as an example, and then they'll want to grow and make them even better again. And that goes across the whole club.
Yeah, no, that is right. Like, I think I was reading some of the comments there. What was the one about the race course there? I think I heard that one as well.
So it was 84 Jolly Boy. So obviously,
I'd heard that one.
It's owned by the Rubens, as we know. They own that up there, so they could potentially, because there is a lot of land in and around that's kind of part of the race course that doesn't really get used for anything. I don't know if it's classed as greenbelt, possibly, of where it is, or with it being privately owned, whether that doesn't.
I think having the Rubens on board is fantastic in that regard. By the way, whenever they've got a problem or a question about land, they say, "Hey lads, we're thinking about building this in X amount of years. Where do you think would be a decent site?" And then they'll know. There'll be a plan there. Of course there will be. I think just for now, it's very much what Eddie Howe said, in the sense of, like, because them asked him, like, do you think you're the person to take the club to this situation? And he was like, I'm not even looking that far down the line. We need to first of all think of Brentford. Do you know what I mean? And that I'm not saying that, but like, we have to kind of just walk before we run. Do you know what I mean? And I think what they're doing at the minute of spending £38 million on daily running costs to clean things up or add a little bit of stuff here is fantastic, and that's what we want. And I think the staff, as you've mentioned, Mark, I mean, when that cloud of Ashley's gone, because you imagine these guys have been going into work every day knowing no one really cares about my opinion. Like, I could go into work and say, all I need is this to be built on that side there, and I can do all of this extra work. That's all I'm saying, just something like that, right? Them know that idea is going nowhere. Them approach their boss, and they know for a fact it's never going to get signed off by anyone. So their own behaviours would change. You wouldn't give as much. You wouldn't care as much. And that's the problem. The club from the very, very top, the care factor was gone. And that's the root problem throughout, is that nobody cared anymore. We didn't even care as fans. That's how bad it was getting. Whereas now, them very same people will be literally skipping into work because they know that their ideas are going to be listened to finally. And again, that's another huge positive for everybody.
Yeah, and I think even Eddie Howe's, certainly recognised that there's work to be done at the training ground. When he was talking about kind of how he likes to have everything digital and stuff like that. We saw obviously from the training videos that they had to bring in a mobile scaffold and tower in order to get a camera up above the pitch to kind of record what was going on. So we definitely need something to happen there. But it was a very, very positive interview from her. Albeit in a very short space of time. She got over a hell of a lot of points. I think it was only maybe 8 to 10 minutes long, something like that. But she covered a lot of the stuff that we are really passionate about, and it just really give you a really big boost. She talked about the fact that she's got a lot of meetings planned in the coming weeks with all of the staff to look at everything that they can do. But she's certainly ready to get her hands in there and get it going. Which
well, Eddie Howe was get his hands in as well, wasn't he? By the way, Sorry to lower the tone, but just wanted to say, obviously, I know we've had amazing moments recently, right, in terms of Ashley leaving, and of course, it was a huge celebration. Them buying was fantastic. Bruce getting sacked was amazing. But I really just want to make a point in the last week or so of how good it's been. Like, we're getting a manager in who the media work's been fantastic about. Amanda's making some fantastic noises. I just feel that this last few, you could say, 72 hours, it's been so positive, and it feels like a new club. It feels like a new club now. Listen, you might turn up next Saturday and get beat off Brentford, and it is what it is. That's football, right? You can lose football games. That's what's important to remember. You can lose football games, but I mean, from the outside now, in terms of how the club you think's being run, and the people that are looking after the club, it just feels in safe hands, doesn't it? That's how it feels to me anyway. And I'm so excited about it. I really am. You can probably tell by me voice and that.
You're absolutely right, though, Digger. It does feel like it's in safe hands, and from the personal experience from this week, like I said earlier on, I've got no reason to doubt their intentions and what they want to do with this club and how it aligns to what we want from the club as well. And I think we should all be really looking forward to what the future holds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we start getting beat, Daryl, don't start like spitting in the food or giving them shit drinks and that, all right?
Never.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, dear me. But it was just nice and refreshing, wasn't it, to hear from our new owners, to hear the plans that they have, to understand that they know what's gone on during the last 14 years of the ownership and stuff like that. And she spoke about the fact that getting Eddie in was the first step, the important part of it, and that they can now look at everything else and go from there. And it's just an exciting start to where we go. But one thing that you didn't say during that interview, but as then came out in with the Daily Mail, was the comments around the Sports Direct signs. So as Marty's putting in the comments there, Sports Direct signs to go. Daryl, she said that she loves walking out to the stadium, but she finds it really difficult to be able to take a picture without.
It's brilliant,
man. We all do, though, don't we? It's the same on a match day. And every day you see somebody on Twitter's got, I've made this picture better, and it's just because it's all the Sports Direct script out of it. And I think if she wants to make a little bit extra pocket money for somebody, sell some tickets and we'll watch them take it down. Put a camera in, we'll watch a live stream, them taking the stuff down. It'll be great.
Maybe they could do what they could do what Sunderland did, where they invited the fans in to come and change the seats. They could invite us all in to come and rip down the Sports Direct signs. I'd be well up for that.
Well, yeah.
Fancy that, Decker?
Get the Gallowgateshots photo wall, just like pulling it down. I'm game for that. Like, I think it'd be quite good.
Couple of the hammer.
Do you know? It's funny she says that, like, because I love the photo of them. Where it's Eddie and obviously Amanda and her husband next to him. It's a really nice photo of that. And again, when I mean about this sort of like, I feel like it's a new start. I looked at that photograph and I was like, it really does feel like that. Do you know what I mean? It's not only a photograph, but like it's how I felt. But it's the Sports Direct above, right? Because it's Newcastle United, but it's either side, and I'm like, it still sort of kicks you a bit, you know. But it seemed positive what she was saying in the Mail regarding the sponsorship, obviously, situation that we all know. The clubs had that crisis meeting and tried to vote against it, that we couldn't get our own sponsorship in and things like that. And that seems to be positive, that they're going to win, which I thought they would. And again, that's another, I think I said this weeks ago about getting Howe in, getting the manager in. It's the first domino to fall, isn't it? And it just, everything sort of goes into place over time, you know, and you'll get rid of Sports Direct. And who knows what might happen. We might have a Saudi Arabian company goes up there. Which some fans won't be happy with. And do you know what it is? I kind of respect that as well. Some fans won't be happy if that happens, right? I'd prefer to keep it all clean. Personally, I would. But you have to understand that the sort of the day and age we're in, we need the money. The marketing's huge, isn't it, in football now? And I do accept that, and I can get behind that. Just anything other than Sports Direct. Whereas before, my motto was anything except Mike Ashley. So it's just moved on, isn't it? But no, I think just as I say, like. I know that wasn't on the interview that we're discussing now, but to see it come out in the press a little bit later or on the same day, again, it's just music to me. Yes, it really, really is.
Yeah, and again, during in that interview with the Daily Mail, she spoke about the fact that the temporary ban that the Premier League have placed on owners being able to kind of take sponsorship deals, that's due to come to an end. And she was very keen to take advantage of that straight away, Daryl. And she spoke about the fact that they'd be looking at the sponsorship immediately as soon as that was lifted, which again, she didn't say that we would definitely be looking at Arabian investment, but it would be available to anybody at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they'll have something will be ready to go from minute zero. As soon as that ban's lifted, they'll be starting to make the processes work. And, as Decker said, it'll be getting rid of the sports direct from the stadium. Might be a Saudi company that takes the place of that. And it could even be a case of the shirt sponsorship as well, because I know there's issues with selling the shirts over in Saudi Arabia because of the fact that it's a betting sponsor that's on the front of it at the minute. And going forward from that, the amounts of money that we're talking about these days is a case of somebody could say, right, we're going to buy out the contract, and then Fun 88, for example, would still get their money, and then the sponsorship would change on the front of the shirt, as an example. And it's going to be interesting to see how they play this. It's going to be, I think, what we could also say, we've been talking about needing a sporting director, etc., a commercial director coming in as well, somebody to look after that specifically, because commercial revenue now is such an important part of running the business of the football club. Our commercial revenues have really been rubbish, basically, for the last 10 years. You've seen other clubs absolutely skyrocket and just overtake it completely. And I think the biggest change you'll see over the next few years in the short term will be our commercial revenues just going to absolutely explode going forward.
Yeah, and that was one of the key points of the Premier League's kind of rule that they introduced, is that it had to be at market value. And market value dictates, well, you just look at the amounts that some of the other clubs are being paid through sponsorship, the amounts that they're generating revenue in, and we're a million miles behind that. Decker, we've spoken before on the podcast about the fact of where we were 14 years ago before Ashley came in, and the clubs of that then subsequently overtaken us with the revenue that they're generating. Spurs is that we're in the position that Spurs were where we were, and we were where they are now, and we've done a complete swap. So
Spurs is what I was going to use as me example. What was Tottenham? If you go back to when Ashley came in, we were head and shoulders above them in terms of revenue, and I find that one actually quite strange, because I think the one thing we can say is Ashley was a very clever businessman. Well, you have to agree with that, right? Because he's got all the money in the world. Well, not all the money in the world, but he's got quite a bit. But he is a successful businessman. But when you think of what he did commercially with us, it was absolutely shocking. Like, so poor. And I definitely agree with Daryl that an organisation and owners like we've got now will get somebody in that is in control of commercial, in control of marketing, and it'll take its own way. It'll have its own head, and it'll be a way. And I think, again, that's another thing over the years to come, where you'll find that we will generate so much more money. And not about this market value business, as you've mentioned there, but we are so far behind that curve. I mean, is it funny? It's £6 million, I think, for the shirt sponsor, or 8? 6 or 8?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, no, of course we're not Man United. I totally appreciate that. But when you look at, I think Tottenham's their training gear was something like 50 or 45, something like that. Like, we are absolutely miles away from what we can be, and you just know for a fact, though, in the future, next year or the year after, that's something they'll be honing in on, and we'll just see massive dividends there as well. So again another positive forward, and it's just another reflection of how neglected the club's been, though, isn't it? That's again what annoys me. It's not just on the field where it's being poor, and that's when you speak to pundits and they go, "Oh, what do they expect?" You know what I mean? And what they're complaining about now, But it's not just about the 3 points on the field or the goals we're scoring. It's about that. It's about the revenue off the field. It's about the stadium being dirty. It's about wheelie bins. It's so much more than just a Saturday at 3 o'clock. And I think they forget about that. I really do.
Yeah, and that's how far-reaching Mike Ashley's neglect of the club has been. It's impacted on every single area and of the club and every bit of it. So that's why we recognise the fact of the big job that the new owners have got in coming in here. That's why it's it's really important that we as a fan base show patience, show understanding that it isn't going to happen overnight, and that it will be a thing that will take a little bit of time to get right. But we do have the ability to make some signings potentially in January, should we need them. And again, she did say in our interview that she was looking at the January transfer window, that they didn't necessarily want to have to do business during that, because they understood that it wasn't, a time when they got a lot of value in there. But I think it is going to be a case of that we are going to have to dive into the transfer market, Daryl.
Yeah, absolutely. As good as we want the current crop of players to be, and we're probably all going to see some improvements between now and January. Now that Eddie's in charge, we're still going to need to make some changes just to keep the level and start the ball rolling forward to progress going into next season. I think I heard an interesting point earlier on this evening on BBC Newcastle, and it was mentioned that we don't necessarily have to ship some of these players out to get replacements in, and we could just remove them from the 25-man squad. It's going to be harsh on those lads, whoever they are, because it will mean they just end up training with the reserves and maybe appearing for the reserves between now and the end of the season, and that will be harsh. And we've seen it before with the likes of Surveys and Lazars and things like that, and they just fester out of the way. But we're going to be in a position where we're probably not going to have much choice other than to do that. A lot of the lads signed contract extensions last summer, and it's going to be hard to move some of them on because they'll be on long contracts with good money. But like say, Dwight Gales, he doesn't have to leave. He's got good money coming in, guaranteed for however long his contract runs out for. And some of the other lads are going to be out of contract in the end of the summer, so you're going to see changes from them as well. Like say, Sean Longstaff says his contract will be running out in the summer coming, and I think he'll be desperate if he wants to stay. He'll have to play for his life to be able to earn a new contract going forward.
He has a really, really, really important few months ahead of him.
Really does.
Sorry to interrupt there, but he really does.
Matty as well. We don't even know if Matty will come back down from Aberdeen yet. We gather he's not having the best times up there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play this window. I think we can all sit here and say, well, we need a centre back, we need a new midfielder, we need a striker to back up Wilson and a left back as well. So it'll be interesting to see how we'll play this. I'm really interested to see how we're going to do it. And we've got the money, but I don't expect it to go stupid. I don't expect it to spend more than maybe 30, 40 million tops just to keep it going, to tick it over, to keep us safe this season.
If I could ask you, Daryl, how many players I know you said the money there, 30, 40, but how many players do you think we need to buy to stay up? If any, but how many do you think we need?
I reckon 3.
We've got the loan market as well. Don't forget even.
I would say three altogether, definitely.
Right, okay.
I'd want a new left back, a centre back, and I'd still be torn between a centre midfielder and a striker to partner Wilson, but I think I would go a left back, centre back, and midfielder. But I wouldn't say they'd all be permanent transfers either. I'd say 1 or 2 of them would be loans.
Interesting.
And as Keelan's saying there, Decker, can you see players leaving, being sold, or even going out on loan, as Neil just said before there?
It's a difficult one, that, because I think, as Daryl's rightly said, there's a lot of them getting paid, a lot of them in contract. Some of them are, not all of them, of course, and I think some of them won't want to go. I think some of them, well, I haven't said that actually, sorry, let us rephrase that. Some actually might want to go, given the training regime now, in terms of like, fucking hell, we're getting put through our paces here. Some might not like that. However, there might be a strong lot of them think this is exactly what we've wanted. As me as a professional, this is what I've been missing. You know what I mean? And they might really buy into what Eddie Howe's trying to do. And they obviously already, it seems that the owners have spoke to the players on a regular basis at training and stuff, and have made sure the players are aware of what the current situation is and what the owners are doing. So you think of how we feel as fans in terms of all these great noises and good vibes that we're feeling. The players will be exactly the same, minus a few, but most of them will be like, Christ, this is a new club. And a lot of them will want to be on board with that, you would hope. So I think some of them may not want to go, but what I would honestly say, though, is when a player knows from the manager that they're not part of the plans anymore, then maybe they will leave. If you know, well, actually, the manager doesn't like us, I'm fucked. Do I just sit and collect my money? Some professionals do that, unfortunately. But I think some others you might be able to get out on loan and stuff like that. I agree with Daryl that I honestly, maybe it's because I'm biased and I like the players, some of the players I have. I know I did say we needed 21 a few weeks ago, but I mean, in terms of to stay up, I think if we can strengthen centre midfield, because it's a huge problem for her, huge, it always has been, with just no legs, get a decent centre half in. I think you're right, really, to be honest with you. Bearing in mind that what I believe Eddie Howe can do with the current crop, I think Almiron will become a better player. I think Willock can become a better player. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a few players there I generally believe. Get Fernandez back in. What the hell is he not on the squad for? Get these players back in and under the new fitness regime and under better coaching, better tactics. Add a couple of people in there in January. I think you'd be okay. I really do.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we've spoken about where we think the club needs to invest on the pitch in previous podcasts and stuff like that. We touched briefly on this earlier, but Blue Moon Boys asking it again. So, Daryl, can you see clubs being reluctant to do business with us, as is rumoured? So, if we are looking at bringing in those 3 or 4 players, is that really going to impact us?
I think in the short term, I think until it actually we get to January, there'll be a lot of noise to that point. I think come January again, like I said earlier, everybody's got a price. I don't think we're going to be held to ransom. I think we're not going to be mugs here. We're not going to have to throw too much money at it. And I think depending on how clubs' finances are, we've just gone through a pandemic. If clubs are starting to need the money in January, then they'll not really have much option, will they?
That's it.
And I think you mentioned there, and I'm looking at this as on a wider scale here. We're not just thinking about clubs in England at this point. There's a lot of clubs on the continent, like your French clubs, for example, are absolutely struggling for finance at the minute. So if we can maybe go and do what we did a few years ago under Alan Pardew and pinch a couple of players from France, fair enough. Let's do it. Let's get them in and get them playing.
Yeah, I do think one worry I have slightly is before this little quote that I'm hearing from other clubs, when Newcastle come knocking on your door for a player, you would imagine if you're the owner, okay, these are the richest guys in the world apparently, aren't they? So I get that some clubs will be wanting bigger money. Adding the fact that these are saying they're not going to do business with her, some of the asking prices could become unrealistic, and really want me to pay over the price that they're worth. But I don't know if it's every club. I mean, it might be. I mean, Tottenham will be one of them. There's no doubt about that. But they again. So there's probably, that's. I agree with that. What Grant says is three, 4, maybe 5 clubs that have got that little opinion, but I don't think it would matter too much. I just think what we may run into is a problem of we want a certain player who's valued at 15, but because it's Newcastle, it's 25 now, mate. That's the only thing I'll say we'll run into, maybe. Which I guess we'll just have to wait, but it could be a problem.
Yeah, and there's a couple of people have said in the comments, Alan, the latest one there, agents run football behind the scenes, and if you're an agent of a player and there's money to be made, you'll be making it regardless of what the club are saying. We all know that the majority of players have got buyout clauses in the contracts. If they are coming up to the end of the contract, say they're out of contract in the summer, again, the clubs are going to be looking to cash in on them because they're not going to wait 6 months and let them walk away for free. So there's definitely opportunities out there for us to buy people in. And
we also have to be careful on that, do you feel, as well, though, in terms of getting the right people in? And I'm not for a second thinking that we're just going to do a QPR and just buy, anyone that's willing to come. But, when you're looking at players that are out of contract in 6 months and we'll buy them, like, kind of why that were contract in 6 months? Why does that club not want to keep them? That's what I mean. Do you know what I mean? We've just got to be also a bit careful in terms of what we'll go for.
Yeah, it's about getting value for money, isn't it? And I spoke, I think it was on Monday, about the fact that when there was the slight delays around the backroom staff and that kind of thing, I quite liked that because it was shown that they weren't just being bent over a barrel and just being held to ransom for any demands that the people that were wanting to come to the club had. They were wanting to negotiate and actually get a good deal. So I'd be looking for that to continue. not to the extent of Ashley and Charlie in the way that they negotiated, because we know that quite often that phrase of we couldn't get it over the line. So, but I think we'll,
Do you think Eddie Howe will use that line? I hope he doesn't.
I certainly hope not. I mean, as I say,
he
from a money point of view, we shouldn't have to, but we know clubs will charge a premium because they know we've got a lot of money. So it is going to be a tough negotiation to kind of get the right price, get the right terms and stuff like that. But we can afford it at the end of the day. But let's not get carried away with it.
No, I agree with that, and I also think that results from now until then are just so important. Like, it's so important. We've got four games coming up, maybe 3 that I feel that we can do something with. Because I would hate to be going into the January window absolutely desperate. Do you know what I mean? Like, we need to do something, and that's when panic situations happen, right? And you can make mistakes in the market, but I guess we've just got to trust the process, haven't you? You've got to trust that, because of course by then you will have a director of football in, or a whatever they're going to call them, a technical director or director of football. And there's probably no doubt that they've got people in mind already. Eddie Howe, didn't he? He already said, didn't he, from the start, that he had a couple of names he said to them in his interview that he felt could improve the team we've got. So who are them people that Eddie Howe's got in mind? You know, so it's the one thing we do know though is we've got owners that are going to go into this January window wanting to make a difference, whereas before we were thinking, well, we might get one loan player. Whereas at least this time we know that we're going to have some kind of dent here. We've got some money behind it and ownership in a structure that generally want to try and improve the squad and improve the team, which again is refreshing, which is great.
It is. And Degger, just to finish on tonight's show, something that we did last night on the phone-in show that we did, which was very successful. So anybody that didn't watch that, go and have a look at the channel after this and give it a little watch. It was
I'd like to do one. I'd like to do one myself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, don't worry. You can ring in and argue with us. It's not a problem. But no, it was good to have a conversation with different people,
Brilliant.
Get them on, have different perspectives, and have that interaction. So definitely something that we will be looking to do more of. But one of the questions that we were asking the callers last night when they were coming on was looking at Eddie Howe and the development of players that are already at the club, and who you thought would really shine under Eddie Howe and maybe come from out of the shadows a little bit. Jamal Lewis got a lot of love from a lot of the callers and in the comments, and again he's getting the same in the comments tonight.
Well, I can't say him then, can I? If it's already been said. I think this one will sound a little bit daft because Jamal Lewis is in the cold. I mean, he's freezing. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not even getting a game. Like what I will just say is I think Eddie Howe will lean on Richie, by the way, early doors. I think he'll trust. He knows Richie. He knows he's going to be working for him, blah, blah. I'm going to say Joe Willock. Now, I appreciate when he came in last year, he was scoring for fun and he was a great player. He's a shadow of that player at the moment. And if you look at the system that we're playing in now, Bruce, there was no place for him in that team. So I really think it will be interesting to see if Eddie Howe can get the best out of Willock again. So that's my guy. That's it.
Yeah, there was a couple of shouts for Joe Willock as well, because he hasn't probably played as much as he would have hoped. Again, maybe that's down to the formation and the way that we've been playing. But I think moving forward, he would be the type of player that Eddie will definitely like, because you talked about obviously the speed, looking to be playing on the front foot and stuff like that, and that sums up Joe Willock entirely, Daryl, doesn't it?
Sorry to interrupt. I apologise. You imagine being Joe Willock hearing that as well? Can you imagine? You're sitting there and you've got a new manager coming, and these are the things he's saying. The likes of Joe Willock, the likes of Almiron. There's a few players that spring in my head. I'll be thinking, "Wow, this is what I want to hear." So hopefully that'll obviously excite Joe Willock, and we'll see the better. So sorry, Darren, I apologise.
No, that's fine, mate. I agree with you. I think he's going to absolutely love what he can get out of the likes of your Miggies, your Saints, your Willocks, even your Ryan Fraser's, because he does, not that we've seen a lot of it since he's come to the club, but he is a fast little player. And I think he's going to find that he's actually got a lot of what he needs at his disposal. He probably already knows this. Like, I'm talking a lot of crap, yeah, but he'll know what he's coming into, and I think he'll be able to get more out. Definitely be able to get more out of the players that he's got at his disposal right now. And I even think we might even see a bit of a resurgence. We mentioned him earlier from Sean Longstaff, with a bit of proper coaching and somebody in his ear saying, you know, in his positioning and think like his thought processes as well on the ball. Because I think one thing we could label him with being in the last year to 18 months is his gameplay has slowed down and he seems to dally on the ball a bit more. His decision making's gone really awry. He's gone slow. Like, you know, he's losing possession, making the wrong passes and things like that. And I think that'll improve. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. Like, it's really interesting to see under a progressive coach like Eddie Howe exactly what we are capable of.
I agree.
I thought that was quite an amusing comment there from Alan. Toss up between the Loch Ness Monster or Lewis, who's been spotted first. Where has Lewis gone? So he's definitely been locked away in Steve Bruce's cupboard somewhere, hasn't he? Along with Fernandez and Shea recently.
Aye.
Well, don't get. It's too late to get onto that. So yeah, but I do agree, Mark. I do agree.
But as we've said, it's just nice to have a little bit of positivity around the club, isn't it? And to hear Amanda speaking, you know, about how she wants to take the club forward, looking at the whole infrastructure, looking at where we're going to go. The future certainly looks rosy, and it's going to be a hell of a ride, and enjoy that as we go, lads.
Absolutely. Well,
Absolutely.
You know, when you think like we wouldn't be sitting here on a Thursday night, you know, talking for an hour and 6 minutes as positive as what we have been, you know, on Ashley. We wouldn't even be doing one on Thursday night because there'd be nothing to talk about. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would just, and it does go to show just how much communication means to us as fans, you know, because of her coming out today and doing what she says. 8 minutes of her time, it took 8 minutes, and the whole fan base was united and buzzing because of an 8-minute video, and it just proves, you know, the power of communication, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah, and when we've been starved of it for so long, any little tiny morsel of information coming out of the club and anything like this is just mind blowing to us to see it. And there's just been a real buzz this week so far around everything that is coming out of the club, and long may it continue. So certainly nice to have smiles on our faces as we talk through everything all Newcastle. But I'm going to draw it to a close tonight, lads. It's been a pleasure to have a chat with you. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a little like down there, down at the bottom. Hit that button, this little thumbs up. And if you already aren't doing it, click that subscribe button as well. So we need as many subscribers. So we've had at one point almost 500 people watching tonight. So hopefully they're all members. And even Alan St. Maximum himself tells you to like and subscribe to the channel. So you cannot go against Alan St. Maximum's wishes. So get on it. So, but thank you everybody for joining us tonight. It has been brought to you by 90 Minutes and of course www.pt-4-u.co.uk. We are the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Or days, hours, who knows? You don't get content like this anywhere else. Good night.
Bye.